What up, though? What up, though? It's good to see everybody again. We are back with another episode of Lions 411 podcast. As y'all can see, I am co-hostless this week. CB actually had some surgery, I think on her wisdom teeth or something like that. Very eventful weekend back with the family. Of course, we take a little bit of break off for the holidays and things like that. So was back home to help her out with that, and it was a really good time. Really good time to see the family. CB was definitely very loopy and a little bit off from her surgery, as you would expect, dealing with anesthesia and things like that. But she's all good to go, and she'll be back next week. But I'm going to hold down the fort this week. So, of course, it's your boy KB, Keith Boggs. You can check me out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, things like that, _ Dr. King's Dream. Of course, be sure to check out our TikTok, Lions411, and follow CB as well as CB Loves That For You on IG. So we're going to go ahead and get started, though. Obviously, we've missed a lot with the Lions. There have been a couple of games now, because they played 2 games last week, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't like the Thursday games at all. They kind of just never seem to have good things that really come from them, especially with the short turnaround. But the Lions also played on Sunday. They defeated the Indianapolis Colts. Don't remember the score to that game. I want to say it was 24-14. Just kind of one of those games that the Lions always felt like they had in hand. And the Colts really just made a lot of mistakes, which was really interesting to see, because I heard a lot of people mention it. Anthony Richardson struggling, but like the struggles don't necessarily look like what you expect them to look like. It's a lot of guys on this team making mistakes, blocking not very good, receivers dropping a ton of passes, guys just committing penalties and things like that. Not going to say that bailed the Lions out in any kind of way because the Lions outplayed the Colts, but very much an uneventful game. I mean, the Lions did what they needed to do. They passed the ball well. They ran the ball well. That just kind of felt like one of those games where you know what you got coming up Thursday. You got a divisional game. It's going to be a short game. It's going to be a nationally televised game. It's a very big deal, especially against the Chicago Bears, who the Lions kind of struggled with last year. So they kind of got through the Colts game not injury-free, which we'll talk about the injuries a little bit later, because they're starting to mount up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But they did get through the game. They haven't let any of those kind of trap games get them this year. They've been beating teams in the AFC South that they need to beat. They're 4-0 now against the AFC South. They've beaten every team in that division, which is really good to see. But they went on to take on the Chicago Bears, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about, because that was really kind of the game of the week, as far as the week that the Lions played, since they played 2 games this week. Bears game, like I said, a lot more eventful, a lot closer. The Lions did manage to pull out a very, very close game, a game that, from most people watching, shouldn't have been very close and had a very, very controversial ending, which helped the Lions out a little bit, but also didn't help the Lions out a little bit with some of the calls and things that were going on. Lions defeated the Bears 23-20. Started the game off fast, very, very fast. Lions were rolling. They were up big. Should have been up way bigger. I believe it was 16-0 at halftime, I want to say. Should have been a lot more. Jahmyr Gibbs had a fumble toward the end of the half, where he was literally right there near the goal line, like inside the 5-yard line. Guy knocks the ball out. You know, it happens. But that first half, the Lions were really like struggling a little bit when it came to finishing off drives. So they were resorting for a lot of field goals and just not finishing off drives in the red zone, which hadn't been much of an issue recently, but was something that we saw earlier in the season when the Lions did struggle against teams like Tampa Bay, or, you know, in the Rams game, I think was closer than it needed to be. The Lions just were struggling to finish out drives, and it seems like the past 2 weeks now the offense has been just a little bit off, because it felt like that in the Colts game too, where they were like ready to take off, and then something just kind of like, whether it was a bad second down play, whether it was a penalty, something kind of put them back, and then a third down play calling was a little bit shaky. Going for it on fourth down, things like that. There's stuff that the Lions are going to do. I am fully in favor of them being aggressive on fourth downs, but it seems like something that hadn't worked out for them as much the past couple of games. So definitely saw some shakiness on offense, but it was a very fast start, and the defense really played well in that first half against Chicago. Chicago wasn't helping themselves out, of course, but the Lions' run defense was great this game. Which, what else is new? I mean, they've been great now for at least the past couple of seasons. And they continue to just get things done. Lee McNeil, DJ Reader, all those guys just kind of continue to get things done. So, started off very, very fast, very big lead. And second half rolled around, and you knew that the Bears were going to do something. Those wide receivers are too good. Caleb Williams is very talented. they were going to break through a little bit. And, for them to score a touchdown, score a couple touchdowns, there's nothing wrong with that. But the Lions defense kind of struggled for a number of different reasons. I don't think the pass rush was bad. And Zadarius Smith has been an excellent addition these past couple of weeks. He's been putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Even if he's not finishing things off, he's been putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Ali McNeil, of course, putting pressure up the middle. DJ Reader got a sack as well last week, against Chicago specifically last week. So it wasn't really the pass rush, but they got a lot of injuries in the backfield with the corners. Rakestraw is on IR. Carlton Davis didn't play this game. Terrion Arnold did play this game, but didn't play the first series because he was dealing with the injury. I thought he did play really well this game. Kendall Vildor was out there, and he struggled a lot in the Colts game. He was getting targeted in that Colts game. Not as much here in this game, though. He wasn't perfect by any means, but certainly wasn't as much of a liability, it seems like. But they just were kind of struggling with DJ Moore after a while, which is a guy that they've struggled with in the past. Keenan Allen, another guy that had a big game against them last year, kind of struggled with him as well. So really guys just kind of started to get loose. Caleb Williams started to make some plays and things like that. And, there's no surprise to that. I think that Bears offense is a good offense, or should be a good offense. But the Lions' inability to put together anything in the second half was not very impressive. I mean, one touchdown in the second half, it's just not good enough. And that sometimes, again, happens in these games. The Lions will roll, and they'll score 50 points, and they'll do all these things. But every now and then they'll have that game where, it's a dud. And it happens. No team is perfect. I still think the Lions are the best team in the league. I think they have the most versatile and dangerous offense in the league. But these games where you're going up against teams where it really matters and teams that are really familiar with you, you're going to deal with that Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, where these teams know your tendencies pretty well. You can't have these second half lulls where we only score, a field goal or a touchdown and put up no other points. And it was a little bit frustrating to see, especially because they kind of were still moving the ball. You look at the stats, and guys had good games. Jared Goff didn't throw an interception, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, over 200 yards passing. We had 2 running backs that, again, over 80 yards. Montgomery, 88 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 87 yards. Obviously, we had the fumble, but other than that, those guys played pretty well. St. Brown had some good catches. Jameson Williams had some good catches. Samuel Porter caught a couple of touchdowns this game. On paper, it looks like things were going well, but they really just got slow in that second half, and they started to have 3-and-outs and drives that were ending for not really good reasons. So just kind of hoping that doesn't rear its ugly head or become a trend for the Lions right now, because when they do struggle to score points, the only game they lost this season was the only game that they didn't score 20 points in, which is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this team has to put up at least a few points. The defense is really good this year. The defense is rated extremely high in pretty much all measures, but you cannot leave those guys out to dry, especially against teams like Chicago, because Chicago has good wide receivers. I mean, Adunze is the guy that didn't even really get going in this game. Very talented, very talented. They have a good tight end. They have good pass-catching running backs like DeAndre Swift. We know what he can do catching the ball. You just can't leave the defense out to dry like that. So that was probably the most disappointing thing, is to see the offense struggle a little bit. But the defense really, I still am very, very impressed by this Lions defense, if I'm being honest. I mean, seeing them even be a borderline top 5 unit in whatever metric you want to look at, it's impressive, especially considering Aiden Hutchinson went out with an injury, and he was, in my opinion, their best defensive player. Brian Branch has been fantastic this year, but I think Aiden Hutchinson was the best defensive player so far. And they're still getting the job done. I mean, they're just not giving up large amounts of points. They will give up a decent amount of yards in some of these games, but they are just not giving up a large amount of points. So it was really impressive to see them kind of hold the fort down a little bit. Things got really tricky late in the game, and there is one thing that I do want to complain about. The officiating just needs to be better. There's no other way around it. I don't like to sit here and complain and fuss about the officials, because at the end of the day, there was a football game that happened. There were things that the Lions could have done to prevent themselves from getting in a certain position. But certain calls just are, it's egregious. It really is egregious. There were some holds in the second half, especially on Caleb Williams' first touchdown to Keenan Allen. Very, very obvious hold. Very clear hold. I believe it was on the guard, or I want to say I think it was the right tackle, actually. And they're showing this play on replay, and they're looking at it like, oh, well, what a great play. Like, the offensive line blocked well, and Caleb Williams made a good read. And that, all Lions fans are looking like, what are you looking at? Like, do you not see this giant hole? Like, Tony Romo, you know football. Like, call that out. And I get that the broadcasters don't want to be the people that kind of call things out too much, but very, very clear hole. There were a lot of plays like that where I feel like the Bears kind of got away. The Lions also did some things that I think Bears fans would be upset about as well. So it kind of, I don't want to say it went both ways because I feel like it hurt the Lions a lot more. And it hurt the Lions a lot more because obviously there was the whole debacle at the end of the game with the Bears. I'm not a Bears fan. I don't really care. Eberflus can go. He can stay. Whatever. Don't really care. I think that it was completely botched and mismanaged from a team that is botched and mismanaged just commonly. But the fact that they got to that chance in the first place because of a pass interference call on Kendall Vildor, that was a horrible call. It was unacceptable. And there's nothing that the Lions can do on their part. That ball wasn't catchable. DJ Moore was barely trying to get to the ball. Vildor and Moore are like doing a little hand fighting thing, but Caleb Williams is literally just throwing up a prayer on 4th and 10 halfway down the field, and you bail him out because there's contact between the two people. But like, Vildor has just as much of a right to get to the ball, at least according to the rules. He's looking toward the ball. He was the one that jumped and dove toward the ball, if anything. And they threw a flag and bailed them out and let that game keep going. That, to me, is that kind of flag where, like, it happens at the end of the game. This is a close game. That can be a determiner. If the Bears went down and scored a touchdown, that would have been very, very bad. Like, that would have been very unfair. And, again, the Lions could have put themselves in a better position. But officiating like that has to be better. You cannot make that call at that point in the game. That was rough. That was really, really rough. And I really would love to see the NFL refs kind of, I don't even want to say step it up because I don't know what the expectation is anymore. But, like, call the game fair. Don't overthink things. Like, there was no need for them to throw the flag at that point in time. I don't think they even, I don't want to say they didn't want to throw the flag, but, like, you could see that there was a discussion about it. You could see that they were hesitant to throw it in the first place, and they threw it anyway. It's just overthought. It's really overthought. Like, that game should have been over right then and there. So, again, I don't want to spend too much time dragging on the officials because they're not the ones playing in the game. But when they do stuff like that, they almost insert themselves into playing in the game. And it's really unfortunate to see. As far as some good things, though, I mean, again, the Lions' run game is still rolling, and it's good to see. They just are so versatile. And, again, I know people are going to complain about Gibbs having a fumble. It happens. Jahmyr Gibbs has fumbled twice in his career, and they both just have happened to come at really bad moments. It happens. But he's been really good. He was excellent between the tackles. High yards per carry again. I think he's leading the NFL in yards per carry still. David Montgomery doing his same old physical, tough, rumbling, stumbling kind of running. That this run game is going to carry the Lions really far. It's going to carry them really, really far. Just based off the fact that they can always line up and do that. Like, there really haven't been many teams this year that can shut that down. I think Houston kind of did it pretty well. And naturally, that was a game that you saw the Lions struggling. You saw Goff throw 5 interceptions and, just a wicked, chaotic game, kind of. And that was because the Texans were stuffing the Lions' run. Like, they were doing a really good job of it. And they were really one of the only teams that I've seen kind of do that. So, if the Lions are able to run the ball, it looks like they can be successful. Jared Goff has been really good this year again. Obviously, he had the blow-up game in Houston. Other than that, if he didn't have that game, he probably would be near the top of the MVP ladder. Especially considering the Lions are 11-1. Wide receivers continue to get it done. Jamison Williams has been really, really, really impressive when it comes to making plays over the middle of the field, catching the ball and running, just doing those little things that I think a lot of people didn't expect of him. And I feel like he might have got targeted a little bit more early on because St. Brown has been a little bit gimpy out there, which he still came and made big plays, 5 catches for 73 yards for the Lions. But I think they were targeting Jamison Williams a little bit more. Just because they didn't want to put too much of the pressure on St. Brown. And Jamison was doing his thing. I mean, comeback routes, like drags, crossers, little small things. Like, he was doing a little bit of everything, catching the ball, making plays. Obviously, he had the really bad penalty, which I don't think a lot of people saw live, but I've seen now people discussing on social media. He got tripped by Tyreek Stevenson when he fell. Stevenson definitely stuck his foot out. And that was way worse to me than him throwing the ball back at him. That was dangerous, and it's just so funny, again, that the referees didn't see that, but they saw Jamison Williams throwing the football back at him. So, again, just the little things that the referees do that kind of get under my skin a little bit. But at the same time, Jameis got to keep his composure. You know, he apologized to the team, according to Dan Campbell. Wouldn't expect it to be a thing that happens again. He's a guy that's very much upbeat and showy, and I like it. I think that adds a different element to this team. It gives him a different kind of energy, and it boosts him up a little bit when he is high energy. You just got to be able to rein it in a little bit sometimes is all. But he made some plays over the middle, which is really impressive. Good to see Sam Laporta kind of get going again and feel a little bit more trusted by Jared Goff, because obviously he was really, really trusted last year, and this year it's just been knickknacks, little things, lots of small injuries and things like that to kind of hold Laporta back, but good to see him going. We got to talk about the defensive side of the ball, though, because we got to talk about these injuries. I don't know what what the problem is. The Lions do practice notoriously hard. I'm not saying that has anything to do with it. It's really just kind of a lot of bad luck. But at this point, there's so many guys on IR, out for multiple weeks. It's tough to see. And I will say it's not as big of a deal because the Lions still have, I want to say, 7 out of their 11 regular starters still out there. So you got DJ Reader, you got Ali McNeil, you got Zadarius Smith, you got Jack Campbell, you got Brian Branch, you got Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis might be back next week, Terry Arnold looks to be fine. You got a lot of the guys that still are there, but when you want to do things the Lions like to do with their defensive line, you got to be able to rotate guys in. And so to lose Hutchinson, to lose Davenport, to lose Barnes, now Mekhi Wing goes out. You've lost guys in the front 7 just in general. We can talk about Anzalone, who hopefully will be back later. Some of these guys will potentially be back, but we lost Rodrigo for the season, which was just crazy to see. I mean, he walked off the field, and I'm like, okay, well, hopefully he's fine. He's going to the tunnel, which isn't good. But to see that he tore his ACL, like another depth linebacker. I mean, we're missing Reeves Maben, so at this point it's Jack Campbell. The Lions went out and got David Long recently. They went out and got Quan Alexander this week. I like those signings. Those are guys that have played before. They're solid guys. I think that they can come in and contribute, but I think the Lions will be a little bit more uncomfortable running base packages, like 4-3 type things, or they have to get a little bit more creative with it. They did sign Jamal Adams, which is funny. I think that Jamal Adams will probably play more of a hybrid safety linebacker role, which is what everybody's pretty much expecting. But they're going to need a little bit of help over the middle of the field. I trust Jack Campbell. He's been really, really good this year. He has taken an extra step, and we might need him to take an extra step at this point with some of the guys out. But Anzalone will be back, and Anzalone is kind of one of the hearts of the defense. Reeves Maben, I think, is expected to be back at some point as well. I'm pretty sure it's a neck injury, so those are pretty tricky, but it would be nice to see him be back within the next few weeks as well. So I think they'll be fine if they can get average-ish production from Quan Alexander, David Long, guys like that. Obviously, they got Nowalski and Neiman, guys that have been around all year. I think they can kind of tape that together. We'll love to see Melifon will come back at some point, but I don't know what the deal is with that. Obviously, you can bring Brian Branch down into the box. They can still cover the middle of the field, so I'm not too worried. I don't think that the linebackers were the most important parts of this defense. But the pass rush is, and we're losing linebackers who can blitz. We're losing guys who can set the edge. This team has to kind of remain physical. It has to keep that aspect of their team. And to lose a guy like Wingo, for example, a guy who's very rotational, but has been good as a rookie. Like, for a rookie, he's been very much impressive. Like, he flashes every now and then, and he never seems to be, like, too much out of position. To lose a rotational guy like that is tough. I'm hoping that John Kaminsky comes back at some point this season because I think he would be a really good guy to be able to help fill in those spaces, but it's just really, really difficult to see a lot of these injuries happen. But, again, the secondary is pretty healthy. And getting healthier. So Carlton Davis should be back next week, and we'll talk about next week shortly. But they might have to blitz a little bit more. Muhammad looked really good. I don't want to mispronounce his first name, but last name of Muhammad, he looked really good. He was very productive against the Bears. Would love to see him kind of give them some more work off the edge. Again, Zadarius Smith looks great. The 2 interior guys that start look great. So they're good. It's just when those guys need a breather, like, they're going to have to blitz. They're going to have to do something unique or creative to be able to kind of get pressure on the quarterback. Josh Pascal went down as well. Hoping that he'll be back in a week or two, but who knows with those kind of injuries. It's just tricky. It's very, very tricky right now. The Lions are in a tricky spot, and I hope that the fans don't get a little bit anxious if they do, drop a game here or there, because this team is 11-1. I don't know if people expect them to go 16-1. That's not an easy feat to pull off, as good as they are. They're going to need some reinforcements on that defensive end to be able to beat some of these teams that they got coming up, because they got some teams on the schedule. I don't know if the Packers are frauds. I don't know if the Vikings are frauds. Right now, their record indicates they're really damn good. The Vikings are 10-2. One of their losses coming to us. The Packers are 9-3. One of their losses coming to us. I don't know if those teams are as good as their record indicates, but at some point you gotta respect them. Like, I really was looking at Minnesota like, I don't really see it. I don't know if they're, going to do this. They're going to do that. They're getting it done. Sam Darnold isn't amazing, but he's making enough plays. He's getting the ball to the guys he has to get the ball to, because he has dangerous threats to get it to. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hockenson, got good running backs. Like, he's putting the ball in their hands, and they got a really good head coach as well. Very offensive-minded head coach. Outstanding. They're putting their guys in the best position to win the games. They got Brian Flores on the defensive side of the ball. We've already talked plenty about how good Brian Flores is and how much he gets out of this defense. So they're a team to worry about. I think the Lions are a lot better. I think that the Lions have even better coaching, I'd say, just narrowly, because Minnesota has really good coaches. But they're a team to worry about, and we play them at the end of the season. But next week, we play Green Bay. Another Thursday game, which I was hoping the Lions would get, their 9 or 10 days off. They're not. They're going to get another Thursday game. Then they'll get their, 10 days off. And even after that 10 days, they get to play Buffalo, which should be fun for sure. And we won't even do too much talking about the Buffalo, because we might have to do a separate episode to preview that matchup. The Bills are rolling. I don't like to make too many broad proclamations, but if there's a likely Super Bowl matchup, it is the Lions and the Bills right now. So we'll wait to see what happens in that game. But they are playing Green Bay next week. Green Bay, again, is 9-3. They've snuck by in some of their games, like very, very closely. But their point differential is still good. They still have good players. They have a very solid defense. Jordan Love has been very up and down this year. A lot of taking chances, making some questionable throws, making some questionable decisions. But obviously still all the talent in the world to make plays. So got him rolling a little bit. Their receivers are very much a ragtag bunch of guys who are all just kind of good. And that ends up combining to be really good for them. Still running the ball. They got Josh Jacobs, which is just such an underrated pickup. He's running the ball fantastic. So this is another team that's pretty well put together, pretty well coached as well. Matt LaFleur is a really good head coach. So it's going to be a dogfight. And this game, I believe, is going to be in Detroit, because the first game, was in Green Bay. So the Lions will be at home. It'll be a Thursday night game. I expect them to be riled out. I expect them to come out fast and furious. And I wouldn't be shocked to see the Lions take a lead early on. But like the Bears do, like the Vikings do, well, the Vikings usually start faster and slow down a little bit. But the Packers, for sure, another team, you could be up, 24-13 in the third quarter. They're going to make a run. They're going to make some plays. Jordan Love is just going to be like, screw it, I'm throwing the ball down there. And with Green Bay, that comes with a lot, because you might get some PI calls and things like that. Lions got to be careful with that kind of stuff. It's going to be a dogfight. It's absolutely going to be a dogfight. Green Bay thinks that they have a shot at this division. They're only 2 games back. They win this game, that gets them really close to evening things up with the Lions. And the Lions do have a tough finishing of the season for their schedule. So Green Bay thinks they can come back and win this division. They think this is their division. Green Bay wins this division a lot. And I think that people are like, oh, well, the Lions are, boosting themselves up. They're this, they're that, and the third. A lot of people don't like that. They're lovable to us. They're lovable to a lot of America, but to a lot of these teams, a lot of these fans, especially NFC North people, they do not like the Lions. So I'm expecting this Green Bay team to come out fired up, and I'm expecting the Lions to come out fired up, and I'm expecting Green Bay to stay in this game. As far as a prediction, I like that the Lions are at home. I like some of the matchups that they have against Green Bay's defense. I don't think Green Bay's defense is a good defense, but I don't think that for the Lions is exactly the best matchup for them. I'd expect this game to be pretty high scoring. I think Green Bay is going to take a lot of shots, but at the same time, the Lions are going to stop that run. They always stop the run. I think that Josh Jacobs kind of did have a good game against the Lions earlier in the season, during the first game. But I expect the Lions to come out ready to stop the run, ready to be aggressive. But I think that the Lions start off fast, and I think this Packers team makes it a game, kind of like how the Bears did. The question is, does the Lions offense keep rolling in the second half when Green Bay makes their adjustments? Because Green Bay is a lot better coached than Chicago. Those second half adjustments will probably be even better than Chicago's were. So hopefully the Lions are able to put up enough of a lead. Again, I expect them to come out fast, ready to go. Everybody's hearing about the injuries and, is this team going to die down? Is this going to affect them? I expect them to be ready to go, very much ready to go, especially after a performance against Chicago that wasn't necessarily up to their standards. So it's going to be a very interesting game. Again, the Lions have, after that, the Bills, then they have the Bears again, then they have the 49ers, and then they have the Vikings. So several division games, always close, always going to be hard fought. You will rarely see blowouts in those divisional games. Maybe early in the season, but late in the season, I just don't expect to see very many blowouts in those games. The 49ers still have a lot of talent, even though they're struggling. And then the 49ers, who they just lost to last night, the Buffalo Bills, again, look like the best team in the AFC right now. So it's going to be a very few interesting weeks for the Lions. They're 11-1 again, though. They should be good as far as a playoff spot very, very soon, especially if they win this game against Green Bay. But after that, the division is still up in the air. Minnesota's a game behind us. Green Bay is 2 games behind us. This could go any which way these last few weeks. So Lions fans just got to stay pat, and this team got to keep rolling. They cannot take anything for granted. 11-1 looks really good on paper, but it doesn't look better than the Super Bowl championship. And this team, I would love to see get that first-round bye. If anybody can use that first-round bye with all the injuries the Lions have, it's them. So keep winning, keep rolling down the stretch. They got to come out firing. They got to come out fast. But things look good for the Lions. They really do look good for the Lions. But we'll be back, of course, after the Packers game to kind of give our takes on things. Like I said, CB will be back as well. And they're playing fairly soon now. It is Monday. So they will be playing Thursday night. So be sure to catch them on Amazon Prime. I will be front and center watching that game, and I hope that the rest of you all are. Hopefully y'all check us out afterward to get some responses and some feedback. With that being said, have a good rest of your holiday season. It's December now. Things are rolling. It's really cold. Snowing in Michigan, as I saw. So everybody be safe out there. Have a good one.